Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 70 of Behind the Camera with Andy Games, the podcast where we shine a light on the storytellers, the creatives, and the voices behind the camera. This week, I'm joined by a counterintelligence agent turned podcaster, Pete A. Turner. We dive into his life on the front lines as an army spy, the human stories behind the missions, and the profound impact the people he met had on him personally. Pete also shares how these experiences shaped his transition into podcasting and why storytelling became his next calling. If you're enjoying the podcast and want to stay connected, all of my links are in the About section from socials, merch, website, and much more. Hitting follow, sharing the show, or leaving a quick rating really helps Behind the Camera grow. Now, here's the interview. Pete, welcome to Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How are we doing today?
Man, this is awesome. First off, we were talking off mic about the challenges of running a show, and so I get it, all of it, and I appreciate you for having me on. I know how hard it is to try to do all the things that we do, to manage it, to look forward. There's so much going on, and so to be able to share time with you on your show is great. And then to all of you watching, same thing. I there's a lot of choices you can make, and you're going to listen to us today. I'm going to do my damnedest to give you something worthwhile. So thank you all for watching. That's where I start every show, Andy, because it's not easy, any of this. And we're competing with a lot of things that are competing at a high level for attention. And I'm so grateful to be able to have this life and to do these things. My show has completely changed my life. And so again, thanks for having me on.
No, my pleasure. And absolutely love that, because it's so true, and it's like the listeners, watchers, whatever, they only ever see the finished product. They don't really see what kind of goes into it, and like it's not the most difficult thing in the world, but there's a lot of work to it, and also having the time to do that is another thing. So honestly, but yeah, it is a pleasure to be here, pleasure to have you on the show. So yeah, let's just get stuck in. So you are the host of the Break It Down Show podcast, but before that, you worked in tactical espionage for 70 months. So let's start from there. So take us back to your military career, and let's go from there to how you got to into podcasting.
Yeah, the whole thing is just kind of ridiculous. I had no intention of going into that. I hadn't even considered going into the Army. I wasn't against it. It just was never even like a thought, right? And then about a month later, I was in, and they started me on my path towards counterintelligence agent status. And I didn't even know what that was, a counterintelligence agent. What is that? What kind of job is that? It's just all these things happened and fell into place. And in the front view mirror, like as you look out your windshield, you're like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I like to pick dangerous things. I like to pick cool stuff, but that's not a plan. That's foolish. And then you look back in the rearview mirror, and you're like, oh, this all goes together. Oh, it all makes sense, And so I deployed to Bosnia. It was hard. It was dirty. It was rugged. It hurt my body. All these things, but I was good at it. I can go out and talk to farmers. I can go out and talk to businessmen, and I could understand what it was like to be in a war-torn country. For whatever reason, I got it. And I just kept going. I just kept getting asked to go. They kept saying yes. And I kept getting better. And so I got really, really good at tactical field collection, to where there's other great people, but there's nobody who's greater than me. We're all above that greatness bar. And so it's changed my life. It's given me ultimately and directly giving me the show that I have that I get to do. And so that's the journey. It's just sort of like, hey, I make this pivot. It worked. And I've continued to pivot off of that pivot, but it all ties back to that decision to join the Army and become a counterintelligence agent, which was an absolute pivot out of needs. Yeah. I needed to do something, right? But yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, wow. And counterintelligence, obviously you've been to so many different countries and spoken to so many different people, like in war-torn countries and stuff. So what does that job sort of entail when you're in the thick of it?
Yeah, the way I do it too, right? The job that I'm talking about is a lot of different things. As soon as we finish this episode, I'm going to have another counterintelligence agent on. Our careers almost perfectly overlap, and he had a completely different experience, which is normal in our field, right?
Yeah.
Like where someone's like, I never did any of that stuff. I did this. And you're like, you got to do all that. It's like you become not jealous, but you're like so excited to hear about someone else's story. Like, I would have loved to have done all that, you know. So my job day to day is to get off the camp and go find people to talk to see what's going on. And I'll say in town, wherever it is, right? That means a lot of places, a lot of things. You know, I've got to be on the go all the time. But also, I've got to be on the go on the camp at all time and talking to us because the Americans don't know who I am. They don't understand my value. And even if you say, well, I'm a counterintelligence agent, if I show them my badge, they're like, yeah, I don't know what to do with you, you know, like because I'm scary. I can investigate internally. I'm going to leave the camp and go talk to locals, and that might turn into a problem. They didn't know if I'm honest or didn't know anything about me. And these are the Americans, right? And so I've got to work with us to help us understand how I help them. I've got to understand how they need help. And then I got to go into new town and do the same thing with them where they trust me and I understand how to help and where to help them. And so that whole thing turns into this mix of, you know, trying to reduce danger, trying to increase opportunity, trying to win more, trying to lose less, that sort of thing. And you're looking for influence all the time. So that means every day I'm going off the camp, I'm talking to folks, I'm on the camp, I'm talking to folks, I'm writing, and I'm just trying to figure out how to make myself useful to the commander. And that's just it's just a lot of work, is what it is.
Yeah.
Constant, nonstop work.
Yeah, sounds it like. And these countries that you visited and you were out doing your job in, were these countries that like the US was directly involved in, or were they like allied countries, or were you like stepping into like a war zone essentially to try and get this
For me,
intelligence?
primarily war zones. There's some allied stuff that I've done, but that's minor, and it really isn't like the centerpiece of what I did. You know, you can be a counterintelligence agent and just do the boringest job in the world. You know, you're
Mhm.
like, yep, I'm sitting here in this safe, you know, giant secure facility, and I'm making slides, like, you know, just like for PowerPoint. They're like, I'm a counterintelligence agent. For a while, when I first started, I was in Germany, and a lot of my peers got to go out and live in houses on the economy, right?
Mhm.
So they weren't on the American camp, and they were doing the job. They were wearing suits every day. I was in headquarters. And so I was doing army stuff, like pick up that net of camo net bag and bring it over here. And you know what? No, now put it over there. And I was doing army stuff. I was trimming hedges.
Yeah.
I was going on a thing called wood and metal detail where we would shed wood and metal throughout the whole camp. And so someone had to go gather it all up in a truck and take it to the dump. Like these are not counterintelligence exciting jobs, but you also have a job of being in the army, right? And so
Mhm.
for me, that time was mostly that kind of stuff where you go and you sit in a chair all day and wait to be told to go pick up cigarette butts, you know, which I'm like, I should be training or something. Shouldn't I be doing something real? I'm like, no, your job right now is to trim these hedges with these hand shears. You're like, hand shears? Can't find a better use for a counterintelligence agent. But that's kind of the thing. And not all jobs are like that, but that's what my experience was in counterintelligence. The guy I'm going to talk to today, he had a totally different experience
Yeah.
on the strategic side. And so he would say, oh my gosh, can you check out the things I did? And I would be stoked to do those jobs. I didn't do that when I wasn't deployed. I had to deploy to go do things.
Yeah, of course. And like what I love about that is the fact that you have this title of counterintelligence, but that's only a sort of fraction of the job. It sort of turns out when obviously because you're still part of the army, you still have to do the army jobs. Like, so what
Yeah.
was it like going out and talking to the locals to get this intelligence? And you mentioned like the element of like, do they trust you? Was there a sort of like danger in terms of going and speaking to the locals?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. My job's super dangerous. I don't, and again, the way I approach my job, right, is to be out, and I'm not by myself for the most part. I'm with the army or whomever, right? So yes, it's dangerous because it's a war-torn country. We call it permissive, right? How permissive is it? Well, we have to wear body armor, have electronic warfare measures, countermeasures all around us so that we don't get killed just walking around, right?
Yeah.
So we're in up armored vehicles, we're all wearing body armor and helmets. We've got weapons with rounds in the chamber ready to shoot. I mean, it's dangerous, right? Now I'm going to go out and try to convince people to betray their country. Oh boy. Yeah, that is a lot of danger. And it's incalculable because you don't know you have to act like it's the safest place ever so that you behave normally,
Yeah.
person to person, but also understand that someone 100 meters away may have their eyes on a reticule and it's on you and they're deciding yes, no on life, right? So it's the ultimate thing where I here's the other thing too, man, and I think you appreciate this. My job is to be known. And so
Yeah.
I want the enemy to know I'm out there. I want them. It's like if I'm playing football on a pitch, if no one knows my number and I'm just running around and no one knows my name, I'm not even in the damn game, you know? And so you've got to stand out, and that means more people, more eyes on you,
Mhm.
more. The way I approached it, I couldn't be discreet. That wasn't going to work. And so I had to be upfront and open and say, here's what I'm doing, here's how I'm doing it. And that invites conflict no matter what I did. I had to have that. That was required to exist.
Yeah, like it's really interesting to me because you hear the words espionage and you think it's the first thing that comes to mind for like, the average Joe like myself would be covert operations, you're going under the radar. But
Right.
from what you're saying, it couldn't have been any more the opposite than that.
Right. Yeah, matter of fact, yeah, you nailed the key word here. There are covert operations and there are overt
Mhm.
operations. And my world was overt. And so, sure, I could obscure my appearance. Maybe I could take my name tape off, but I'm still standing with the army. I'm still
Yeah.
eating with those guys and living with them. So I just treated it like, yeah, I'm overt. So to that end, I'll take it to the nth degree. If I met with like a sheikh or whatever, and he's starting to get to know me, and he'd look, and it didn't happen all the time, but it happened often enough, and they would say, "Are you a spy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And if I ask you a question you don't like, don't answer it. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to do anything else. And just know that like my intention here is to be valuable to you, valuable to the Americans, and figure out what we have to do. And they'd be like, "Oh, that's kind of like what I do." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because we're solving human problems." And then
Yeah.
off we go. We'd start working together. And here's the thing I realized, Eddie, was wherever I went in that area, if I was building a network and was successful, they were going to talk about me. Oh, have you met Pete?
Hmm.
Right. And so I learned this two different ways. I had told one of the sheikhs I was talking to, and I said, I don't sit so good on the floor. So if I'm wiggling around, that's just because my body hurts. I'm not good at sitting on the floor. I was in a motorcycle accident and whatever else, right? And so the next time I went to a sheikh's house, not his house, but someone that guy obviously knew, there was a chair waiting for me. Oh, we heard you were coming. We got you a chair because we know that you don't sit well on the floor. Oh, the sheikhs moved intel about me. There's this guy, Pete. He's a real cool dude. Make sure you get a chair for him. He doesn't sit down, he'll appreciate it. And then after that, everywhere I went, there was always a chair for me.
Fantastic.
Isn't that
That
crazy?
is. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Like, and I to me that just says it's diplomacy at its finest, isn't it? And it's like I kind of feel like from the outside looking in, people have this kind of particular vision of what these types of operations might be like, but when
Yeah.
you boil it down, it's just people talking to people, isn't it? And
Right.
like you well put, like solving human problems. And at the end of the day, everybody wants peace, whether they're on the battlefield, whether they're doing what you
Right.
do ultimately. And it just comes down to talking to people, or like in a way, you could say it's networking.
It is. It's 100% networking. Let me get this battery swapped out
Yeah.
here. It's 100% networking, and my job, well, it's a lot of things at the same time. It's not just 100%, but there's a lot of things that I have to do that involve getting to know people, right? And that's again including the Americans. And so when the Americans are talking to me, I've got to network with them. And so I go out and I say, "Hey, have you read my report?" And this person might be in, let's say, office 12, right? And he's got a very specific job for the commander, and he doesn't know who are you. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Pete. I'm writing reports. I'm a counterintelligence agent, so I go off to camp, and that may or may not be helpful to you directly, but I don't want you to get caught unaware when I write things because I'm communicating directly to the boss." And they'll say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, whatever." And then the boss will pull out a note from my report, and he'll say, "Pete wrote about this earlier, blah 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 blah." And everybody's like, "Now, who's Pete?" You know, because if they don't know, they get caught unaware. You get caught unaware. The boss
Mm-hmm.
notices. The boss notices. That's not good for you. So now when I go back to Office 12 and I see that Bob or whoever Bob is, and I'll say, "Hey, Are you reading my reports? And like, yes, Pete, I'm reading your reports. The commander reads the reports every day. And I'm like, that's what I told you a week ago. And I'll slap him on the back. Like, that's all right, man. I know my job is to exist. So now that you know I'm here, when you read my stuff, if it's helpful to you, let me know, because that helps me understand what's helpful to you, so I can help you be helpful to the boss. This is the same process on our side as I do on their side. And so as I write these reports, I'll give it to the dang sheikh and I'll say, here's what I wrote. And then my interpreter would read it to him and he would say, oh, and this is what I love, man. When they would go, oh, I get what you're doing now. Because they don't know. And there is all this intrigue and there is all this danger and everything. And so if I could do something as simple as give them my report so they could understand what I'm writing about, then they would say, oh, Pete, some of this stuff, you got to add some context. And they would start writing my report for me and filling in details that I could never know.
Yeah, like it's such a fascinating insight, and like, and how many times, like out of 10, would you say that the people who you are sort of liaising with are looking for the same sort of resolution to have doing, I think, for the exact same plan that it is that you have, or your sort of command has?
Understand, my plan and my goals are often in line with what they want to do. And
Yeah.
ultimately, it's the commander's plan. And so I'm trying to communicate what we're trying to do. And we're not very good at that. So, and again, like there's a lot of collection of relationships going on with these relationships. But if I can do this with you and I can say, hey, listen, the Americans are a lot of force. Well, I'm going to try to get them to back off. What are the areas do you think that we should work on? And I felt like, I'd like to have more electricity. That's too complicated. Think small. What's the
Mhm.
smallest problem we can solve today? And then they go, oh, well, if we're going to go small, we should already have this problem solved, the this and then this and then that guy. Okay, great. Who would you want to talk to here locally? Because I don't know, to make sure that we had the right people in the room. And they're like, well, we got to have Barney, got to have Jeff, Christine, and Sandy. If they're not in the room, we'll never solve this thing. Will those guys all get this? Now I'm learning their process, right? And so that may not seem like spying, but to get all those Sandy and all those people in that room, if we can solve that problem, let's say it's an interpersonal, inter and intra farm community problem where there's violence involved. Now we might perceive that violence is directed towards us or just a general degradation of security in the area, but the reality is it's just a beef. And if we can get that beef turned off, I can say, okay, so we turned off a beef. We think we'll see. We had these people involved, and we had these other Americans there. We just observed they did all of this themselves. But I'm told that tensions will be lower in the area. I'll continue to monitor this for you on our side. And then I do the same for them. And I'll say, how do we make sure this peace holds? And they'll say, well, can you continue? And now look, check this out. Pete, can you help us? Can you go around and kind of tell us if you hear anything about this? So now I'm collecting for them. Now I'm their asset. And I'm like, of course. And again, I'm not breaking the rules here. I'm
Yeah.
just being the communicator. And I'm saying, hey, everything I hear sounds good. Like they aren't talking about this beef. Matter of fact, they're saying that beef looks like it's over, and they'll be like, oh, thank goodness, because they don't know either, right? And I'm external, so they can ask me a question. I can put that question into their world as an outsider, and then they may or may not be honest with me. Now, look, that could all blow up in our faces. This is not perfect, and I've made 100 mistakes, gotten things wrong, but by allowing the information to come into me, I'm able to capture it, give it to somebody else. They can process it, and then they can decide what's real. And then I can test their new assumption on our side. And I try to, as much as I can, on their side, do the same thing.
Yeah. That's incredible. Like, absolutely love that, because it's like, to go back to the point you made about like sort of network, and it's like you pick a problem and you sort of use that network, expand that network to sort of solve all these little problems, and then the bigger picture kind of comes to light, and then you can kind of tackle that as it comes. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, and if you think about the premise from the beginning, hey Pete, go to a foreign country and get to know all of the key players in the area, and even if they're dangerous, matter of fact, the more dangerous, the better, and don't get killed. And make sure that the commander understands who you are. It's like it's an impossible thing. Like, what do you mean meet all of the billionaires in the area or meet all of the key business owners? How am I going to do that? What value? Oh, and we're not going to give you any money We're not going to give you any, maybe some whiskey or something, right? But I'm supposed to go out and just walk my way into that world. That's so impossible, right? And by the way, they might shoot you, so don't go out too much. Don't get too far from home. Bring a radio. Always stand out so everybody knows you're an American and think you're a spy. All these problems that I've got to go out and solve. Well, this is the system that you work within, and I've managed to navigate. It's incredible. And I'll say this too: it's incredibly hard, and it just wears you out, and your brain is always cooking. And so when you're done at the end of the day, like I'm not watching movies, I'm not talking to girls, I'm just going to sleep because I got to do this thing again in another 5 hours.
Yeah, like it's so fascinating just hearing about that and like your experiences in all these different countries. Like, especially when you look at things like the media representations of war torn countries and war zones, the reality almost couldn't be further from that, or at least the media only show the worst parts of it, whereas you kind of been in the sort of other side of that. Like, how would you sort of define the media's representation of these sorts of places that you've been to?
I do not have a very high opinion of the media when they go and they report on combat stuff. It's just they are there to get their story,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not there to get the story, and that's not always true. But that is my experience. And whenever I saw those guys, I'd always say, "Hey, my job is to be out in town, to know a lot of people. I've got a lot of great sources. If you want to know anything, I'm glad to be of service. I don't care to be on TV. I don't care to not be.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter to me about that. It's just if you need to know something, I'm the person you should talk to." And they would never follow up with me, never. And so I don't care. It's not about ego. I'm like, here's what's going on. Here's what I do. Here's how I can help. If you need me, come talk to me. They never needed me. So that tells me one thing. Like if I met a spy, I'd be like, holy shit, I met you now here, my first person I meet. Wow. Okay, yeah, let's sit down and talk. Let me get my notebook and let me figure this whole area out. And I'm like, let me get my interpreter because he is the guy that has all the direct knowledge, right? But never. And so that tells me that those guys were there to do a job. They did it. Their bosses either did or didn't like it, but they never knew what they were talking about. I would know if I went to a new area because reporting and spying, same thing. I would say, like, who's been here? Who do I need to know? How do I go talk to all of the interpreters who are all hanging out together and largely ignored? I'll go sit with those dudes and start to make friends with them. And they will have so much knowledge because they've been there. They've been there for a long time. They know all the stories. And I'll just take all of that information and start gathering it. And it'll speed up my familiarity with the area way faster than somebody who's in the military and doing traditional things.
Yeah. Like, it really is just incredible to sort of see what it's really kind of like in these places, when you look at the sort of the way the media reports it. Because, like, I mean, I'm a bit of a skeptic myself when it comes to that sort of thing. And I look at it and think, but like, surely you've got all these people still living in these places that are outside of it. And it's usually kind of like war zones are more often than not centralized into major cities or even both one particular place. And you've got so many countries are so big that it kind of
Right.
goes a lot further. You've got people who are on the outside, even though they are kind of still in the same country. Like it's no, it's fascinating. So, and like on that as well, like out of all the countries you've been to, like in a sort of professional capacity, do you have any countries that you would love to go back and visit as a civilian to just
Sure.
sort
All
of
of them.
go and all
All
of
of them.
them? Yeah,
Yeah, because look, Iraq is dangerous, right? But it's
yeah.
also not dangerous. And sort of like you're alluding, like it's a big place. It's the size of Texas. And so Texas is big if you don't know.
Yeah.
And and so yeah, I would go back. And a lot of these people I believe would remember me and remember me fondly. Look, maybe there's a beef out there that I didn't know about. But I'd go back to Afghanistan. I would love to go visit those villages and just say, hey, I'm just me. I'm not working. I just wanted to see you all.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. But you know, that's not how life works for the most part. So it's hard to do. Bosnia, I would love to go back to Bosnia and see Bosnia now, 30 years on and see like what condition. Because when I was there were fresh graves. They were
Mhm.
blowing up houses. All that stuff's been fixed. And those people have been getting along, you know, as well as anybody else can. And I would love to go visit those places. And I don't think a soul would remember me because, it's so long now, 30 years. But I'd love to go back and just
Yeah.
kind of kick around and see specifically those areas that I was in.
Yeah, like, and it's amazing because I've heard the same thing about Iraq. My dad actually used to sort of work out in Iraq, and he would send me photos of it all the time. It looked like an incredibly beautiful country. It was, very safe and like
Yeah,
just not what I had ever sort of knew it to be. And then, like, I watch like a lot of sort of travel vloggers now. I know I take them with a pinch of salt at times, but
yeah,
the people from the Middle East, like, apparently some of the nicest people you will ever meet anywhere in the world. And
yeah.
it kind of shows how sort of jaded people's perceptions can get, like, and it's I just think it's incredible. So, moving on to then, this has led you on to your podcasting in Break It Down show. So
Right.
tell us about the podcast, like tell us about how this sort of came to be and the concept of it.
Well, I'd had all these incredible experiences, right? Met all these people, made friends with warlords, and I'm like, I've got to share this in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that like writing a book was not really something that I was going to be able to do anytime soon, just because you know, it's a big investment of time and money, and I wasn't necessarily interested in that. And this seemed to me like me talking and getting to know people was really just a continuation of what I'd already done. My show really is just me being me. And so I often take my show on the road, and I'll go somewhere to go do some event or whatever. And I'll bring my gear with me and I'll have one of these conversations there. I love going to someone else's house, which is exactly what I did in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'd go to some dude's house and sit there and talk to him. So all of this stuff was just sort of the natural progress. I didn't necessarily know that going in. It wasn't necessarily the design, but I realized like, oh, I'm just doing the same thing that I always did. And no wonder it's easy. No wonder I love it because I loved my job as hard as it was and as challenging and everything else. I love it. And look, I know you feel this. I'm so fortunate that my show and I like that I've been able to build this thing. 2,000 episodes, man.
Yeah.
Right? Like every one episode, I'm super excited about. The guy that first off, I'm excited to talk to you. Obviously, I went on for about like 5 minutes at the first start of the thing. I love doing this. And then I'm going to talk to one of my peers who'd had a totally different work
Yeah.
experience than me in about 20 minutes or so. Oh my God. Hell yes. And now I get to do that 2,000 times. And I'm saying 2,000, it's well beyond that now. So, um, what a reward. It's completely changed my life. I have so many new friends and my whole life is tied into my podcast. I brought my old friends along. They're forced to deal with it and sometimes be on the show. I love the Break It Down show. And so this is the funny part. Andy, like, like social media or something like, oh, you're a podcaster. Like, if you only knew, if you only knew who you were talking to and what my experience had been. And by the way, if that person had been on my show, they wouldn't be like that. Maybe they haven't been invited enough, but the reality is it's a total gift. It's a
Yeah.
hard won gift. And now it's like this piece of art because I've shaped it and I've evolved it. And it's for me, I like it. I think it's awesome. Maybe someone else doesn't like it. I don't care because it's so good at doing exactly what I want it to do. I'm blown away. And one of the other things is my show often books itself. And when I do book somebody, it's because I'm delighted to have them on. I'm like, I cannot wait to talk to Ken in 20. I'm not lying. Like I've been excited about this for weeks. But there's all these episodes, and I do about 5, 6, 7. I sometimes do 8 shows in a week. And I'm not talking including me being a guest, because I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
I back off every now and then. I'll open up time in my schedule, and then I'm right back to it. I cannot get enough of it. I love it. And by the way, thank you for letting me ramble on for
No,
about
of course.
5 minutes
That's what
about
this
it.
is about, man. That's what this is about, and like I love the passion behind it because like it's just, I mean, I see a lot in myself and what I do with that because and obviously haven't you haven't been out and spoke to all these people in real life and learned their stories, learn probably more about them than you probably ever thought that you ever would have, given that you were there in a professional capacity. Like, it sort of really does open your eyes in the sense that every single person has a story. And like that's something that I've carried with me personally for the better part of 15 plus years. And just from a random conversation I had with a friend of mine. And it's just, and when you get to do it, it just becomes an addiction. You're talking to so many different people. And like you said, you're about to talk to somebody who is in the same line of work with you, completely different story. Like that, I mean,
Right.
I understand why you'd be so excited about that. But then sometimes as well, like you could talk to like like a plumber or something who has lived a life, and but how would you have ever known that unless you had these conversations? And that's why podcasting, especially these types of ones, are just such a great thing to be able to do. And like you say, it does come with good fortune, because you learn so much about the world around you, about people, their journeys and experiences. And I think it carries so much value to not just like ourselves as hosts, but like to the listeners, to anybody who happens to stumble across this on Spotify or wherever it may be. There's always something for somebody to take from it.
Yeah, man, it's so true. And I don't get to do this enough because you are limited in what you get to do. But one of my thoughts is like to take my gear, get in my truck, and just drive and go to a place and find someone new every day. And I look, logistically, it's not hard to do. It'll be a physically, mentally challenge, but
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. That's part of the journey. But I would love to just do that and just stop and be like, "Hey, are you the mayor of this place? Are you the chaplain of this place? Are you the store?" And just tell this story of, in this case, of America, and
Yeah.
just go out and do it. And there's the plan today, and we'll see if it happens, is that my girlfriend and I are going to start traveling the world before we get too old to do that. And that sounds exotic and fancy, and it is, but we're not going to be fancy. We're just going to go be in
Yeah.
other places and experience them. And so if that happens, you better believe I'm going to have my gear. I'm going to find someone and I'm going to talk to them all the time. And I'll do some of this like we're doing now, like the remote electronic version of it. But if I can find someone in town who's a butcher or whatever it is, yeah, I want to talk. As a matter of fact, I had a butcher on last month and he's amazing. And you think, a butcher? But let me tell you, this is one of the world's most famous, successful butchers. And because of me and my ridiculous show and everything else, I got to talk to someone who doesn't ever do podcasts. And so I got to book him, and I didn't have to book him. He was booked for me. Like, Pete, you need to have Guy on this. His name's Guy Crims. You need to have Guy Crims on your show. And I said, okay, now I can have Guy Crims whenever I want. I love that dude. He loves me. We have this amazing relationship. So all of this goes into like the bucket of wonderful things that I get to experience. And I just have to pick and choose what I'm going to do. So I'd like to go on the road, and I'm probably going to go on the road here soon, but um, I should just do more of it and maybe do less episodes, but make them more road themed and see how that goes.
Yeah, and like it's a great plan, because like when you do that, you're really kind of seeing the world for what it is, seeing like people for who they are, and like you say, people who've never done podcasts before, like who like this is a guy behind a butcher counter, probably never would expect to have ever be approached to come on a podcast, because just does his job, and then look at what that can bring to you. Like
Oh my
it's just
gosh.
such an
Yeah.
incredible thing, man. Like, 'cause whenever I started doing this myself, like I used to be like a live streamer, and I used to like interview other live streamers. So I was like already kind of interviewing within my network, and my sort of initial core audience, they were like, yeah, that's cool, these are people we know. But then like fast forward 6 months, people were saying to me like, oh my god, Andy, you're getting like all these kind of incredible guests on who've done all these different things. I'm like, well, yeah, that's just because these people are out there. These people have their stories, and these people want to tell their stories. Like, and you mentioned the reputation from social media of podcasters, and it's funny at this point, but when you are a podcaster, it just becomes funny, because it's like, well, you don't know what it is that you're missing out on.
Yeah. 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 And look, a lot of people have tried and failed at being a podcast producer. So there's also that whole thing too, or maybe they were on one, or maybe they and their buddy started it. And so they want to mock it or whatever. But that's them. So I just sort of like, if that's what you've got, first off, I'm not in the seventh grade, and so you can try to make if if you think that your little insult is going to be worse than what this guy says to the guy who I see in the mirror every day, you got to be crazy, because I'm going to be way harder on me and way more effective at being hard on me than you and your precious little seventh grade era. Oh, you're a podcaster. I'm like, I could laugh at him because it's hilarious. Like, you're like a little kid, man. What are you talking about? And so, yeah, look, God bless to anybody who tries to do something, paint, create,
Yeah.
write, mechanic, whatever it is that you want to do, go do that. And if you find the thing at the level that we're at now, you're off to the races. Are you going to go try martial art? man, go do it. And if it doesn't
Yeah.
work out, who cares? Not all dreams work out, but you pursue the dreams until you find the one you like and you stick with it. And those things can change. You're like, you know what? I no longer want to do karate. I'm going to go cook. And then you become a great chef. Whatever it is, we can all do these things. So it doesn't have to be a podcast. And so if you want to mock someone, just go do something. You're spending time mocking me when you could be whatever it is that you think you need to do. Go do that. Don't invest time in saying something mean to me that I giggle at because you abuse me. Don't don't waste your time on that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Like, because the thing I found about this as well is that a lot of great stories come from ventures that didn't necessarily work out, for example, or maybe serve their time, and but that's the thing. People just kind of put their energy into the wrong things sometimes. And now, like, a lot of people do turn to podcasting, and there we go, you have your story there, and it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's just, but then, like you say, a lot of people do try podcasting and it doesn't really work out for them. Like, so what would you say, like, in your experience of over 2,000 episodes, like, what's the sort of key to longevity in your experience?
Well, I think the first key is I liken it to swimming, right? Like I like to swim. I can go jump in the pool right now and go swim a mile. Most people on the planet are not capable of doing that. And I'm not that I'm a great swimmer, but I just enjoy it. I know how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to say, I want to do the 100 free in 90 seconds, okay, great. You want to get in the pool with me? Well, I can't swim. Oh, okay. Well, I'll help you swim, and then we'll learn how to swim together. But if you aren't willing to just get in the pool, then you don't get to be a podcaster because it's a real profession. And there's folks that are taking it serious that are struggling. So it has to be that you're willing to do all of the things required. And one of the big lessons is always like the person will inevitably say, you've probably heard this, I can't stand to hear my voice recorded. And I'm like, well then why can't I? If you're not even going to listen to yourself to get better, you're not earning my time. And I'm not me, just anybody, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you have to work. You can start and be awful at it. That's totally normal and fine. By episode 10, you'll be better. But if you're not listening and thinking and polishing and fixing all the time to make your show be better, like this shot here, it's not by accident, it's by design. It looks good. I like how it looks, right? And I'll change it and it'll be something else. But all this stuff, if you're not willing to do these things, then podcasting won't be for you. And now, maybe in a year, you'll have it figured out. But it's like anything. Will you show up? Will you show up every day? Can you feed your show attention? Like
Yep.
you must do something for your show every day, Andy. It must be true.
Oh, 100%. There is not a moment in any day where I'm not thinking about something I could be doing. And even whenever I force myself to believe it's okay to have a day off, which it is,
Yeah.
I'm still sitting there thinking, but I should be on this, that, and the other. And
Mhm.
like, I mean, the way I look at it is it's passion shining through. Like, it's not me neglecting anything. It's just, it's the drive and desire. And, like, to go off the back of what you said, I think you just need to enjoy it. Like,
Yeah.
a lot, because there's like, I mean, you hear of the statistic thrown around all the time where, the number seems to change all the time. I hear 3 episodes, I hear 4, I hear 10.
Yeah.
Most people don't
Whatever.
make it past that. But like, if you're willing to put the work into it, like you say, and enjoy doing it, like, it just becomes easy. And yes, like, there are elements of it that are like work and it's a job, but if you enjoy it, then it doesn't necessarily feel like that. It just becomes certain things that you have to do to make a good product that you can be proud of and that other people can, well, want a piece of in some aspects. When people want to come on your show and be like, holy shit, I want to
Yeah.
be a piece of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I try to do is I try to help my friends that are like maybe have that itch. I'm like, well, here's what you do. Right. And this is a level above I'm dreaming I might do this. This is a person who's like, should I do this? And I'm like, I'll tell you what, why don't you produce a couple episodes? Come
Yeah.
on with me and sit in as co-host, and I'll get you some training wheels. And so you can see, and if it fails, you haven't set up a website and done all these other things, spent any money, just come try it out, just come practice. And if you're into it, I'm glad to help you. I'm glad to charge you to help you, depending on how much help you need. And I'm also glad to leave you alone, but that's a fun thing. And so I'll take my friends and like they'll read a book. I'm like, oh my God, I just read the most amazing book. And And I'll say, well, what was it? Like, oh, it was, book X and written by author Y. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get that guy in the show. And I'll let them, I won't tell them. And I'll go book that author. And I'll say, hey, guess what? I got author Y coming up on the show, and you're going to co-host with me. And they're like, what? How did you do that? And I'm like, well, that's what I do. And so I now create this environment where the author is in front of someone who loves their book. The reader is like, oh my God, I love your book. So here's what I do, Eddie. I just sit back, way back here, and I'll let those guys talk, and I'll let them have the time of their lives. And how great is that? I love to do that for people and give them that moment. And now they don't have to be a failed podcaster. They're like, oh yeah, I go on my buddy Pete's show sometimes. All I got to do is tell them something. He'll go get that person. And they love it. And maybe they don't listen to any other episode. But now, as they talk about me, it's in a great way. And I don't care if they listen to the show or not. That'll happen if it happens. But someone else is like, wait, I didn't know he had a show. Oh, it's so good. Right now I've got an advocate who's helping. And if it's possible, that person will or won't listen to the show, whatever, right? But it's just this good vibe and this good seed planted. Everybody wins. And by the way, that author loves me because I just brought one of his super fans right to his doorstep. And they're like, yeah, anytime you want to do that for me, I will take it. Right. And this is the exchange. So you want to talk about podcasting and should our why? Can you exchange value like that? Now you're a good podcaster. Now you're creating something bigger than just you talking to somebody.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, and I kind of think like one of the reasons that people stop themselves getting into it is just self-doubt creeps in before they even try it. And like you said, just try it. Produce a couple of episodes, and you offer your service as a co-host, but people like, because you said people don't want to hear the sound of their own voice. Another one I hear all the time is, why would anybody care what I have to say? It's like, well, why would anyone care what I have to say? But yeah, I've been doing this for a year and a half, and people seem to be still into it, and I enjoy it. So why should I care? It's and as well, like people will you'll have maybe like a guest on your show, and people will just kind of be like, oh my God, how did you get this person? It's like, I just asked. You really learn that the unattainable, in quotations, are just people like you and I. It's just kind of people are people. Some people have different stories. You just reach out. Like the worst thing that happens is nothing, and you're back to where you were. Right. Like you don't lose any credibility. You just
lose any credibility.
Yeah, and it honestly, like the somewhat misconceptions people have of podcasting, it just fascinates me because, and the people who want to do it and don't, like, they're missing out on so much. Like it's honestly, it's and like of course some people might like to try and live vicariously through you by like, when like close friends, for example, and be like, oh, my friend interviewed this person, this, that, and the other. It's like, well, if you want to go do that, do it. Like, give it a go. It takes time. That's one of the sort of big things. It takes time. You kind of need to build up a bit of a repertoire. You need to kind of, before it's not necessarily about like who you have on. It's more establishing yourself, finding your own particular voice, your style of interview, whatever it may be. You need to refine all these like skills, your production value, and then you just kind of have a really well polished finished product for everybody to enjoy. And that's kind of, I mean, I make it sound so simple and it's not, but like, it's again, like when you sort of put the time and effort into it, you can really do anything with it.
You really can. Yeah. It's a magical thing, man. And I hope that folks find whatever their journey is. I hope they find the comparable journey to what I've been on, because I wouldn't trade this for anything. And I make some money from my show. Let's be honest about that, but not enough, right? Like I could double my income, and I would be like, I'm still, doing way more. But also the opportunities are there, and so it's not just the money for me. And again, there's some money there, but the ability to do things, I'm like, I can't believe I get to do this right now. And it was fueled by my show, like all these things. So yeah, anybody who's interested in doing something, I suggest you do it. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. Try something else and just see if you can find something that makes you just tickled to talk about it and do all the time, because it's probably a good thing for you.
Yeah, 100%. And like the journey it can take you on, like especially if it's anything like yours, Pete, is just something to be admired. But Pete, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Thank you so much for your time. Been absolutely incredible chatting. I would just like to give you the floor to let the listeners know where they can find you.
Sure. And thank you for that. Yeah. Pete A. Turner on YouTube. If you want to watch my show, great. Thank you very much. But make sure you guys also support Andy, so subscribe to his show. And if you need to look me up on X, Pete A. Turner. I'm on all social media, but that's the one I'm on the most if you want to find me. But you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook and all those places. I'm glad to talk to you. Glad to hear you out, whatever it is. If I can be of use to you, great. Put me to work. But otherwise, that's it, man. And just thanks for letting me plug my Pete A. Turner self. And I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, man. I really do appreciate your time. It's been amazing chatting. And yeah, take care.
Alrighty.
And there you have it. That brings us to the end of episode 70 of Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Massive thank you to Pete A. Turner for being this week's guest and sharing his story. Pete's passion for storytelling and humanity really shone through, and it was an absolute pleasure to sit down with him. Once again, if you'd like to stay connected and support the podcast, drop a follow, check out my Linktree for socials and more, and maybe share the episode with someone who you think might get a lot out of it. Until next time, take care, stay creative, and I'll see you soon. But until then, peace.